should read now only. This is the time. We should reflect. Human life must be some kind of mistake. If you had been shown your entire life before birth, would you have ever agreed to live it? Imagine seeing everything in advance. Your memories, the house that once felt enormous, your parents while they were still young, the people you would love before you knew their names. Then the other scenes, the first funeral, the first betrayal, the hospital room, the dirty bedsheet, the face you would watch grow old, the person you would embrace for the last time without realizing it was the last. You would see your own decline, your body slowly becoming less obedient, people disappearing from your life until entire periods of your past exist only inside you. You would see how much of once seemed permanent and were merely passing through. And finally, you would see your death. Then someone would ask, knowing the full cost, do you still want to be born? None of us answered that question. Existence preceded permission. We appeared inside bodies we didn't choose, carrying genes we did not select, among the people we did not appoint, in a century already wounded, histories that began before us. Even our desire to remain alive arrived before our philosophy about life. Organism clings first, the mind explains later. This makes every judgment about existence strangely compromised. The creature asking whether life is worthwhile is already biologically designed to resist its disappearance. Perhaps this is why we usually ask safer questions. What is the meaning of life? But meaning comes later. Is something underneath it, something colder? Was existence worth beginning at all? Consciousness is a peculiar event in matter, somewhere in the history of universe that appears indifferent to begin first. Matter became capable of noticing itself. And with the awakening came beauty, but also dread. A stone cannot fear tomorrow. A star cannot miss yesterday. The dead know not seem troubled by their absence. We can mourn has already vanished. Suffer is what's happening now, tremble before events that exist only as possibilities. We can even suffer before we know that happiness itself is a temporary thing. Perhaps this is the hidden wound of consciousness, to recognize beauty while already knowing it will be taken away. And still we love, still we build, still we whisper forever inside bodies already moving toward death. Maybe what is courage? Maybe instinct, maybe self-deception, maybe something far stranger. So forget for a moment what life means. Ask the question that comes before meaning. You had seen the whole thing beforehand. Would you have entered this planet? At this exact moment, someone is receiving news that will divide their life into two parts, before it happened and after. A test confirms an incurable disease. A mother identifies the body of her child. Somewhere, a child learns the sound of an explosion before understanding what war is, why it was invented. Someone who spent 40 years working finally reaches old age and realizes that surviving consumed so much of the time they were supposed to live. These aren't philosophical abstractions. They are ordinary possibilities of being human. Yet suffering has a quieter cruelty. Doesn't need to destroy a life to inhabit it. There are people surrounded by family who feel completely alone. People who spend 10 years pursuing something, finally obtain and discovers that desire has already moved elsewhere. Healthy bodies carry shame, anxiety, guilt, resentment, and fear of losses that haven't even happened. The mind can suffer in three directions at once, from memory, from the present, from the anticipation. We don't merely experience pain. We remember it, interpret it, imagine it return, and sometimes build identities around wounds whose original moment lasted only minutes. And happiness has its own strange instability. What once seemed miraculous becomes ordinary. The achievement becomes routine. The person we once couldn't imagine living without becomes becomes part of the furniture of daily existence. The extraordinary slowly loses its brightness simply because it remains. We adapt, then desire begins again. Perhaps this is one of the consciousness's darker arrangements. We become accustomed to what we have, yet remain terrified of losing it. Love itself contains this contradiction. The more precious someone becomes, the greater the territory grief may one day occupy. Every deep attachment quietly creates a future vulnerability. This does not mean life is only suffering. It means something much harder to escape. No life is protected from it. Medicine can reduce pain. Wealth can reduce certain risk. Civilization can make existence safer. Yet no technology can guarantee that someone will never experience disease, abandonment, humiliation, grief, mental collapse, accident, or the slow disappearance of everyone they love. Accepting this risk for ourselves is one thing, but creating another person is different. Because when we bring someone into existence, we aren't merely giving them access to sunsets, intimacy, music, discovery, and love. We are also making them vulnerable to everything existence can take away. They cannot approve the wager beforehand, so the question becomes darker. When we create a life, who exactly gives us the right to gamble with someone else's suffering? There is someone who you can never disappoint, traumatize, abandon, or bury. The child who is never born. It sounds cruel, almost inhuman. Yet beneath that sentence lies a disturbing problem. Before someone exists, there is no consciousness waiting outside life. No unborn child feels lonely because nobody created them. No one mourns the birthday they never celebrated, the person who never loved, the ocean they never saw, or the life they were never given. There is no deprivation because there is no one to experience deprivation. Birth changes this completely. When a child enters the world, they don't receive only the possibility of a first kiss, friendship, discovery, warmth, beauty, and belonging. They receive a body capable of pain and a mind capable of fear. People capable of living and a world capable of taking away almost everything they will eventually learn to love. Some children are born with severe congenital disease. Others arrive where clean water, food, medicine, or basic safety remain uncertain. Some open their eyes inside conflicts that began before their parents were born. None selected the conditions of their arrival. This does not make their lives less valuable. Suffering and human worth are not opposites. The uncomfortable question is different. When creating, someone also creates the possibility of that person's suffering, who is entitled to authorize the risk. Consent reaches an impossible boundary here. To ask someone whether they want to exist, they would already need to exist. Every birth, therefore, contains a decision made irreversibly behalf of someone else. And perhaps this is something almost metaphysically strange about this. Summon consciousness from a condition in which it needed nothing, then place it inside a condition where it will spend decades needing things: food, safety, recognition, love, meaning, hope, and eventually relief from suffering. Yet there is a fracture in this argument. If never existing prevents every wound, it also prevents a person who might one day look back despite everything and say, "I'm glad I was here." And such people exist. People marked by illness, grief, poverty, betrayal, disability, and terrible losses, who still choose tomorrow. So something remains unresolved. Perhaps suffering can make existence unbearable without automatically making existence regrettable. And if pain alone cannot explain whether a life was worth beginning, another question appears. What is powerful enough to make a wounded creature continue wanting to exist? There are people who bury their future they thought they would have, and a few days later buy bread for tomorrow. Perhaps few things reveal strangeness of being human more clearly. After wars, schools reopen. After earthquakes, families, pandemics, through ruins of photograph, watches, their family members try to find them. Letters, fragments of ordinary life. People lose movement after accidents, slowly learn another way to inhabit their bodies. Parents bury their children and still make the breakfast for the next morning. Somehow try to remain in this planet. The dead are still bred. Catastrophe wasn't undone, and yet breakfast is prepared. Bills are paid. The alarm rings. Life continues with an almost offensive normality. Why? We should resist the comforting answer. Suffering does not necessarily teach. Trauma does not automatically create wisdom. Some experiences leave people diminished, frightened, distrustful, or permanently changed. There are wounds from which no hidden blessings emerges. Resilience does not mean returning untouched. Sometimes continuing simply means constructing a life around something that will never be repaired. And this reveals a disturbing paradox. A life can lose something irrepressible without necessarily losing everything that makes existence desirable. Someone can mourn today and still want tomorrow. A person can wish desperately that one event had never happened while still being grateful that entire life happened. Can laugh again without betraying the person they buried. So how should a life be measured? The quantity of suffering, the intensity of pleasure, the meaning of extracted from experience, or by something impossible to calculate while story remains unfinished? There is, however, a darker possibility. Our persistence may not contain the profound meaning we want to find in it. The organism wants to survive long before humans created religions, philosophies, poems, and explanations for existence. Living things were already avoiding threats, seeking nourishment, reproducing, protecting themselves. Life clung to life before it could explain why. Perhaps consciousness arrived afterward and inherited this ancient command. Inherited continue. Then it built stories around command, purpose, legacy, destiny, hope, meaning, maybe some of what we call existential crisis. Meaning extinction. Explanation creates an even stranger question. If our desire to continue can be traced partly to biology, does that make our reasons for living false? Has evolution produced something that eventually became larger than life, survival itself? Because sometimes people remain alive for the reasons that cannot be reduced to pleasure. A promise, a child, a person who needs them, a question that haven't answered yet, one unfinished thing. So perhaps the mystery is in that we suffer. It is after understanding that existence, what can do to us, something in us can still say, tomorrow. What if no one is waiting at the end of the question? Perhaps the universe contains no hidden explanation for our existence. Science can describe how stars form, how species can evolve, how cells are divided, how brains work. Yet none of this tells us what we are supposed to live for. What is the meaning of life? There may be one consciousness, deepest frustrations. We demand an answer from reality that may not even contain the category of the question. The universe does not appear to be organizing events according to human justice. A child can die before their parents. A generous person can become terminally ill. Someone cruel can live comfortably into old age. Floods don't examine morality before entering homes. Cancer does not ask whether its host deserves another decade or not. Reality happens, and our ideas of fairness happens inside it. For thousands of years, humans have looked upward and wondered whether there is something behind the silence. God, providence, and hidden order, some deeper layer of reality inaccessible to ordinary people. Perhaps there is, maybe, perhaps there isn't. The terrifying part is that consciousness may never receive certainty while consciousness remains alive. We are creatures capable of asking metaphysical questions while trapped inside instruments designed primarily for survival. Reality exceeds what those instruments can perceive. Or perhaps the silence really is reality, empty. And astronomical scales, our lives are almost absurdly brief. Entire generations appear and vanish while the universe remains largely indifferent and uncared. But small does not necessarily means meaningless. Meaningful to whom? A 10-minute conversation can alter 40 years of someone's life. A childhood that ended decades ago can still determine how an adult loves, fears, forgives, or raises a child. Someone who has been dead for years can remain present in decisions made today. Duration isn't sufficient to measure value. Otherwise, everything temporary would be worthless. Perhaps our mistake is searching for meaning as through existence, where an object manufactured for a purpose waiting for us to discover the instructions engraved underneath it. What if we are made for nothing? We have no meaning. That doesn't prove nothing matters. It only removes the guarantee that meaning exists independently of us. Maybe meaning arises where consciousness touches something it cannot treat as indifferent. Love, memory, beauty, another person, a promise. But then the darker problem arises, returns with full power. We create meaning ourselves. How can we know whether we have discovered something genuine, merely invented, story sophisticated enough to make morality bearable? Perhaps religion, legacy, perhaps purpose, even hope are different names given to our refusal to accept the silence. Or perhaps that refusal points towards something real. We don't know. And maybe this is the most disturbing possibility. The universe may never tell us whether our meaning is truth or not, or consolation. Perhaps the greatest mistake is demanding a verdict on life before life is finished. Some questions appear to require an answer when, in reality, they require an entire existence. Nothing we have said absolves life. Disease remains real. Injustice remains indifferent to our explanations. People still lose children. Bodies still deteriorate. Accidents still interrupt plans. And some human beings receive an almost incomprehensibly harsher existence than others. No serious philosophy should turn this into the comforting claim that everything happens for a reason. Some things should not happen. Some suffering reveals nothing. Some wounds don't contain secret wisdom. Some tragedies are simply tragedies. Yet there are fundamental difference between asking, would it have been possible to come to this world before you knew? If you knew you would come, what can still happen? Non-existence prevents every possible suffering, but it also prevents the subject for whom that prevention could be a relief, the person who never exists, never mourns, but never experiences absence of mourning either. For those who are already there, the situation is different. Possess something the present can never completely reveal. They are an unfinished business. Someone who will become essential to you may currently be a stranger. Conversation that will alter the direction of your life hasn't happened yet. There may be plans, there were a vision or version of you, impossible under your present circumstances, will finally become visible. None of this is promised. The future is not secretly benevolent. Tomorrow can heal, but it can also destroy. Hope is not knowledge that things will improve. Perhaps hope stripped of sentimentality is simply recognition that future has not yet disclosed. It contents and uncertainty matters. Return then to the question from the beginning. If you could have watched your entire life before birth, knowing every humiliation, every ordinary happiness, every person you would love, everything that you lose, would you have chosen to enter this life? I don't know. Perhaps an honest answer must tolerate those three words, because we aren't standing outside existence, deciding whether to enter. We are already inside it and the door is closed. We have memories now, names, attachments, scars, people whose existence has become entangled with ours. So perhaps the final question isn't whether life considered from nowhere is worth its price. Perhaps the question belongs to those condemned and privileged to already exist. When the last day finally arrives, when the nothing more can be added to your life becomes a completed fact, what would need to happen for you to look back at all suffering, all the beauty, all the loss, and still say, yes, I'm glad I was here. I am terrible to lose all of that, but still I want to come again. There's something to lose, I'm happy about it. Think about there is a deeper way to support this work. Members get access to 100 plus exclusive things of this planet. You get so many things for free, but yet still suffer. And want to know one answer of that question. What is the meaning of life?